They thought they were being considerate, planning my future, securing their own. At a family brunch, over mimosas and artisanal pastries, my children Sarah and David began to carve up my life like it was a Sunday roast. And the main course, my retirement home, the home I'd worked for my entire life. They casually assigned it to my grandson, without so much as a whisper to me. "It makes perfect sense, Grandma," my grandson Liam chimed in, his smile too bright, too entitled. "Once you move into the assisted living, this place is just going to sit empty. I could use the space for my new venture." My children nodded in agreement, pleased with their solution. They didn't see the silent scream building inside me. They didn't see the years of subtle slights, of feeling like a financial burden, culminating in this final blatant act of disrespect. What they did see was an old woman compliant. What they didn't know is that their casual declaration had just set something into motion, something they would never see coming. Before I tell you how a lifetime of hard-earned independence was almost stolen, and how I chose to let a stranger open the door to my carefully constructed future, tell me, have you ever felt your life was being decided for you by others? Drop a comment below. And if you believe that sometimes the quietest resistance makes the loudest statement, hit subscribe. My life was never easy. My late husband, Thomas, worked hard, but we always lived within our means. Our dream was simple, a comfortable, quiet retirement in our own home. No debt, no worries. A place where we could finally rest. This house, the very one they were discussing, was the culmination of 40 years of sacrifice. Every extra shift Thomas took. Every penny I saved from my small bakery business. Our children, Sarah and David, grew up with more than we ever had. We provided for them perhaps too well. They saw our frugality not as wisdom, but as an endless well of resources. Sarah, my daughter, always had an expensive hobby or a new business venture that needed seed money. David, my son, constantly battled with unforeseen expenses that invariably landed at our doorstep. When Thomas passed 5 years ago, it was a profound loss. But it was also a moment of clarity. I was alone, yes, but I was financially independent. The house was paid off. The investments were solid. I had secured my peace. Or so I thought. Their concern for my well-being quickly transformed into a thinly veiled expectation of inheritance. "Mother, you really shouldn't be climbing ladders at your age," Sarah would declare, always just before suggesting I pay for a professional gardener. "Are you sure you're remembering to pay all your bills on time?" David would ask, subtly hinting that perhaps he should take over my finances. I saw through it. The subtle probing. The constant assessment of my mental faculties. They saw an old woman, ripe for assisted decision-making. I saw myself, a strong, independent woman, fighting to hold on to the life I had built. Then came Liam, my eldest grandson, Sarah's son. Charming, ambitious, and utterly convinced of his own brilliance. He was embarking on a new startup, a co-living space venture, trendy, expensive, and, predictably, in need of significant capital. Liam began to visit me frequently, not for genuine connection, but for market research. He'd walk through my home, his eyes calculating, assessing. "This floor plan," he'd muse. "It would be perfect for a multi-unit conversion. So much potential." He spoke of my home as a project. Commodity. Sarah, my daughter, became his loudest cheerleader. "Mother, think of Liam. This could be huge. And wouldn't it be wonderful to keep the house in the family?" Her voice dripped with saccharine concern, designed to appeal to my sense of legacy. But her words were merely a thinly veiled roadmap to my immediate displacement. I heard them one afternoon, just weeks before the fateful brunch. Liam was showing Sarah a digital rendering of my living room, converted into a shared workspace. "And Grandma's room," he said too loudly, "can be the quiet meditation pod. She won't need it once she's settled at Serenity Pines." Right? Serenity Pines. An assisted living facility, chosen apparently without my input. This wasn't about keeping the house in the family. It was about stripping me of my independence, my home, my past, and my future, all for their convenience and Liam's venture. The joke, at my 60th anniversary, now felt less like a joke and more like a carefully planned eviction notice. Brunch. It was supposed to be a celebratory affair. My son David had just received a promotion. A grand setting in a trendy new restaurant. Everyone dressed to impress. And I, as usual, was the quiet observer at the end of the table. The conversation flowed from one achievement to another. Their achievements. My daughter Sarah praised Liam's vision. My son David beamed about his new title. I sat, sipping my tea, listening to the casual dismissal of my presence. And then Liam, emboldened by the attention, cleared his throat. "Mom, Dad," he began, addressing Sarah and David. "I've been thinking about the timeline for the co-living space. Grandma moving into Serenity Pines by late autumn gives us plenty of time for renovations." Sarah smiled, a dazzling, self-satisfied smile. "Yes, darling. It's all arranged. We've spoken to the facility. Grandma's room is lovely. And once she's settled, the house is yours, Liam." David added, "It's a win-win. Grandma gets excellent care, and Liam gets a fantastic start." It was then, that exact moment, the casual, almost flippant way they spoke about my life, my home, my future, like I was a piece of furniture to be rearranged, problem to be solved, an asset to be exploited. I looked around the table. No one seemed to notice. No one questioned it. They all nodded. All of them. A cold calm descended over me. The shock was gone, replaced by a fierce, protective instinct. They had crossed a line drawn by 60 years of quiet sacrifice. And now they would learn the price of that transgression. I finished my tea, my mind racing. They thought they had secured their future. I knew they had just unlocked a very different one. For all of us, that night, the pleasant veneer of the brunch evaporated. I spent hours staring at the walls of my home, my sanctuary, the place I had built piece by piece, memory by memory. They wanted to take it, not without a fight. But my fight wouldn't be loud arguments or emotional pleas. It would be quiet, precise, and utterly unexpected. My first thought was the lease agreement for Serenity Pines. I hadn't signed anything. They were just making arrangements. So I called their administrative office. My voice was calm, a little frail. "I believe there's been a misunderstanding," I explained. "I have no intention of moving in. My children acted without my consent." The administrator, bless her heart, was apologetic. "Of course, ma'am. We'll cancel the provisional booking immediately." That was the first domino. Next, the house. Their prize. Their inheritance. I had to ensure it was occupied. But by someone who would respect it. Someone who wouldn't be swayed by my children's entitlement. Someone who would hold the line. Stranger, perhaps, but a trustworthy one. I remembered a young man from the local community center, David. He was a student, a budding artist, struggling to make ends meet in the city. He needed a quiet place to work on his thesis, away from noisy roommates. He was respectful, reliable, and utterly unknown to my family. "Perfect," called him. We met. I explained my unusual request. "I need someone responsible to occupy my home for a few months," I said, "while I take an extended trip." No mention of my family's machinations. Just a practical need. He was thrilled. We drew up a simple, temporary lease agreement. He would pay a nominal rent to cover utilities, nothing more. Fair exchange. The day before the assigned moving date for Serenity Pines, and the day my children assumed Liam would gain access, I handed David the keys. "The house is yours for the next 3 months," I told him. "Treat it as your own. And if anyone tries to enter without your permission, you are under no obligation to let them in. You are the legal occupant." His eyes widened slightly at the emphasis on anyone, but he simply nodded. "Understood, ma'am." As I packed a small bag for a personal retreat to a quiet coastal town, I felt a lightness I hadn't felt in years. The house, my home, was no longer a pawn in their greedy game. It was a fortress. And the stranger I'd entrusted it to? He was the unyielding gatekeeper. The day arrived. The day my children and Liam were expected to claim their prize. I was sipping tea in a quiet cafe by the sea, my phone silenced, save for a single text from David. On our way to the house, Mother. So excited for Liam. His words were like a cruel joke, given the reality I had set in motion. I imagined them. Sarah directing the movers. David, overseeing Liam's grand plans. And Liam, undoubtedly, already picturing his venture taking shape within my walls. They expected an empty house, an open door, and a docile old woman waiting for her ride to Serenity Pines. The call from Sarah came first. Mother, where are you? We're here. The door is locked. Did you forget to leave a key? Her voice was laced with annoyance, not concern. I let it ring. Then David's call. Mom, pick up. This isn't funny. We have movers here. Their entitlement was palpable, even through the phone. I imagined the scene. Their shock. Their disbelief. The moment Liam realized his dreams were crumbling before his eyes. The moment Sarah and David realized their carefully constructed plan had gone spectacularly, bewilderingly wrong. David, my son, would undoubtedly be furious. He wouldn't understand. He'd demand explanations. Sarah would try her charm, then resort to threats. And Liam would be in absolute despair. Their entire scheme, based on my assumed weakness, was now facing a very unexpected, very inconvenient reality. The reality of a valid lease, of a legal occupant, and of an old woman far away, simply observing. The calls and texts from my children escalated. Accusations of senility, demands to know who that man was. I finally responded to a text from Sarah. My dear, the house is occupied. I hope you've made other arrangements for Liam. The silence that followed was delicious. The silence of expectations shattered. The silence of a lesson, finally, undeniably learned. My personal retreat became a longer stay. My children, humbled by the public humiliation of their failed plan, and the unexpected legal entanglements of Liam's defunct venture, rarely call now. Not to demand, at least. And Liam, he's still looking for a place. The house remains David's home. A quiet sanctuary for an artist, respected and cared for. It's a testament to the fact that a home isn't just four walls and a roof. It's dignity. It's independence. It's the culmination of a lifetime's work. And it is not, under any circumstances, community property to be assigned by those who confuse inheritance with entitlement. They thought they knew me. A compliant old woman. An easy mark. But sometimes, the quietest hearts hold the fiercest resolve. And the act of simply letting a stranger open a door can be the most profound act of self-preservation, and the most satisfying revenge of all.